I need to be honest about something before I start. I almost didn't post this. Not because I don't believe what happened, I absolutely do, but because writing it down makes it feel real again in a way I've spent 2 years trying to undo. This was the summer after I graduated. I was 22. My sister Dana and I had planned a 4-day camping trip to a backcountry site in the Ozark National Forest in Arkansas. She was 25, lived in Fayetteville, and had more camping experience than I did. I was the one who found the site online, though a dispersed area about 7 miles down a service road south of Cass. A hiking forum had a post from a few years back calling the most underrated primitive site in the state. 0 reviews after that. Nobody else had mentioned it since. We arrived on a Thursday afternoon. The service road was rougher than Dana's Tacoma was happy about, but we made it. The site itself was genuinely beautiful, a wide, flat clearing ringed by old-growth hardwoods, with a dry creek bed cutting through the east side. The forest floor was thick with pine needles. Everything smelled like rain, even though it hadn't rained in days. We set up our tents on the west side of the clearing where the ground was level. Dana had brought a camp stove, and we made pasta around 6 p.m. while the light was still good. We talked about everything except anything serious. Her job, my plans, old road trips we'd taken with our parents. It was exactly the kind of evening the trip was supposed to be. Around 9 p.m., Dana pointed her headlamp at something near the tree line. Is that a trail marker? I looked. There was a strip of orange surveyor's tape tied around the base of a tree about 40 feet away. Low, maybe knee height, not where you typically put trail signage. Neither of us thought much of it. Surveyor's tape shows up in forests for all kinds of reasons. I remember Dana saying it was probably from a timber company, and that was the end of the conversation. We went to sleep around 10:30. I woke up at 2:14 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at my phone the moment I opened my eyes. I woke up the same way I always do when something's wrong, all at once, completely alert, no groggy transition. I lay still and listened. Nothing, just the usual nighttime sounds. Wind in the canopy, something small moving in the leaves far off. I was about to close my eyes again when I heard it. A branch snapping, not in the distance. Close, maybe 25 feet. I sat up slowly. My tent was a double wall with a mesh inner layer, which meant I could see shapes through the outer fly if there was enough ambient light. There wasn't much, just a weak glow of a half moon filtering through the trees. I watched the mesh wall and waited. Nothing moved, no more sounds. I sat there for probably 4 minutes before telling myself it was a deer and laying back down. I fell asleep faster than I expected to. When I woke up in the morning, Dana was already at the stove. I unzipped my tent, stretched, and started walking toward her. That's when I saw the tape. There were 3 more strips of orange surveyor's tape tied to trees around our campsite. One near the entrance to the clearing, one on a tree, maybe 15 feet behind my tent, one on the tree closest to the dry creek bed. For a total, counting the one from last night, they formed a loose perimeter around where we'd set up camp. Dana noticed me staring. She walked over, looked at where I was looking, and said nothing for a few seconds. Then she said, "Those weren't there yesterday." I told her about the branch I'd heard in the night. She poured her coffee very carefully and didn't say anything. We agreed to hike for a few hours and see how we felt when we got back. Dana said whoever left the tape probably just came through at an odd hour and was marking something for work. It was a reasonable explanation. I didn't have a better one. We weren't going to let a few pieces of plastic tape cut a trip short. The hike was good. A few miles north, there was a ridge that looked out over the whole valley. We took pictures. We ate trail mix and pretended the morning had started normally. We got back to camp around 1 p.m. There was a 5th piece of tape. This one was tied to the leg of my camp chair, which was sitting in the middle of the clearing exactly where I'd left it. Neither of us had a word for what we were feeling. It wasn't quite fear yet. It was something more disorienting than that. The feeling of being in a space that was somehow not yours, even though you'd set it up yourself. I walked the perimeter of the clearing, while Dana stood near the truck with her keys in her hand. I was looking for footprints, for trash, for anything that would tell me who had been here. I found boot prints in the soft dirt near the creek bed, 2 different sizes. Whatever size the second person wore, they were considerably larger than the first. 2 people, while we were sleeping, and again while we were gone. I found the 6th piece of tape on the way back to Dana. It was tied around the base of the water jug, sitting next to our stove. I think that's what finally did it for me. Not the perimeter, not the boot prints. The fact that someone had walked up to our cooking area, crouched down, and tied a piece of tape around something we used every day. It was deliberate. It was close. It was personal. Dana didn't say anything when I showed her. She just picked up the jug and put it in the truck. I started breaking down my tent. We didn't discuss it or debate it. We just packed. It took us about 35 minutes to get everything in the truck. I drove while Dana looked out the window, about a mile down the service road. My headlights caught something in the trees on the passenger side. I slowed without thinking about it. There was a man standing at the edge of the tree line, watching the truck. He was wearing dark clothing, and he was completely still. I couldn't see his face, but he wasn't hiding. He was just standing there, watching us drive past with his hands at his sides. Dana grabbed the door handle. I drove. Neither of us slept properly for about a week after that. We reported it to the Forest Service, gave them the coordinates, described what we'd found. They said they'd look into it. About a month later, I drove past a hardware store and noticed a display of surveyor's tape near the entrance. I haven't been able to make myself go camping since. I still don't understand what the tape was marking or measuring. I'm going to tell this straight because I've tried to dress it up in my head a few times, and it doesn't work. The straight version is already strange enough. My name is Marcus. I'm 34. 2 summers ago, I drove up alone to a small lake in the Superior National Forest in northern Minnesota. I'd been going to this area since I was a kid. My dad used to take me every August when I was growing up, and I'd kept the habit into adulthood. I know that stretch of forest better than I know most things. The lake I was going to was the same one my dad and I always used. Small, no boat access, no designated campground, just a few spots worn flat by years of repeat visitors. You could fit maybe 2 tents there comfortably, 3 if you pushed it. I'd never shown up to find another person there. In 20-something years, it was always empty when I arrived. This time, someone else was already there. Their camp was on the far side of the lake, maybe 400 yards across the water. A single tent, a small fire, too far to see details. I set up on my usual side and didn't think much of it. 2 camps, opposite sides, plenty of space for both of us. It was actually kind of nice knowing there was another person nearby. Camping alone doesn't bother me, but I'm not going to pretend another presence in an otherwise empty wilderness is unwelcome. I cooked, ate, read for a while, and turned in around 9:30. It gets dark fast up there. At some point in the night, I woke up. I don't know what woke me. I opened my eyes, and it was black inside the tent, and I was immediately aware of a sound that I couldn't quite place. It wasn't movement. It wasn't a branch or an animal. It was more like a rhythm, a low, repetitive sound, like someone counting under their breath, or reciting something. It was coming from across the lake. I unzipped the tent and looked out. The fire on the other side was still going, actually bigger than it had been when I went to sleep, which already felt wrong. And in the light of it, I could just make out a figure standing at the water's edge. Not sitting, standing, facing the lake, facing my camp. I stayed at the entrance of my tent for a few minutes, watching. The figure didn't move. The sound kept going. Eventually, I zipped the tent back up and tried to sleep. I told myself the person was having a rough night, that people cope with things in strange ways in the wilderness, that it was none of my business. I fell back asleep somewhere around 4 a.m. In the morning, the camp across the lake was gone, not broken down neatly. Gone. No tent. No fire ring disturbance that I could see from my side. No smoke. Nothing. I have a decent pair of binoculars I bring for bird watching. I use them to scan that side of the lake for about 10 minutes. I couldn't find a single sign that anyone had been there. Now here is the part one haven't told many people. After breakfast, I decided to paddle around the lake. I have an inflatable kayak I bring sometimes when the car is room. I paddled across to the other side, beached the kayak, and walked to where the camp had been. The fire ring I would have expected wasn't there, But the ground wasn't undisturbed either. There were marks in the dirt. Not exactly footprints, more like something had been dragged in a consistent pattern. Parallel lines, about 2 feet apart, running from the water's edge back into the trees. They went maybe 30 feet into the forest before the ground hardened and the marks disappeared. I followed them until they stopped. At the end of the marks, there was a single thing on the ground, a laminated index card, the kind that had been made on a printer, sealed in a layer of cheap plastic. I picked it up. It had a photograph on one side, an aerial or topographic image, hard to tell which, and a set of handwritten coordinates on the other, which read, Site 46. Do not approach the water after dark. That was it. No name, no explanation, no indication of what Site 46 meant or what kind of project this was. I stood there in the trees for a long time, turned that card over my hands. Then it occurred to me to think about the other 5. I paddled back to my camp, packed everything up, and drove out that same morning. I kept the card. I've shown it to a few people, and nobody's been able to tell me what it is. A surveying project, an art installation, something weirder. I went back to that lake one more time the following spring. I didn't find anything on my side, but across the water, someone had cleared a new fire ring. What I do think about, more than anything else, is the number. What on earth could Site 4 of 6 mean when written on a card and found the way I found it? I should start by saying that I have 2 kids, and this happened when they were 8 and 11. I'm telling this story because I think parents need to hear it, not because I enjoy revisiting it. My name is Joanna. My husband Ray and I have been taking our kids, Caleb and Ann, on camping trips since they were toddlers. We're not hardcore outdoors people, but we know what we're doing. Car camping, established campgrounds, fire permits, the regular family version. We've done it maybe a dozen times in different states. This was Labor Day weekend. 2 years ago, we booked a site at a campground in the Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina. Site 11. We booked it 3 months in advance because those sites go fast on holiday weekends. And I remember feeling genuinely lucky when we got the confirmation email. We arrived on Saturday afternoon. The campground host checked us in, handed us a map, and told us checkout was Monday at noon. Standard stuff. Our site was at the far end of the campground loop, backed up against a forest with good tree coverage for shade. The kids loved it immediately. Caleb found a salamander within 10 minutes. There was a family set up at the site directly across from ours. Site 12. 2 adults and what looked like a teenage boy, maybe 15 or 16. They had a large canvas canopy, a serious camp kitchen setup, and a generator running a small fan. These were people who camped regularly and had their system dialed in. The dad waved when we pulled in. I waved back. We didn't talk that first afternoon. After dinner, we let the kids run around near the fire ring while Ray and I cleaned up. At some point, I realized the teenagers from Site 12 had migrated over to our side and was standing near the tree line watching Caleb and Ann play. Not interacting, just watching. I mentioned it to Ray in a low voice. He glanced over, assessed, and said the kid was probably just bored. Teenagers on camping trips are often bored. I agreed it was likely nothing. But I kept watching, and the kid never moved, just stood there until his mom called him back to their site. I didn't sleep great that night. I don't sleep great anywhere that isn't my own bed, and I remember waking up twice for no particular reason. The second time I woke up, I heard voices nearby. Adult voices, quiet but audible. I checked the time, 2:48 a.m., and sat up. Through the tent mesh, I could see the orange glow of a small light moving slowly through our campsite. Ray was already awake beside me. He touched my arm. The light moved past the tent toward the kid's tent and stopped. Ray was out of the tent before I could process what was happening. I heard him say sharply, "Hey!" And then an inaudible woman's voice said somethings, and then the light moved quickly away. Ray came back in. He said it was the couple from across the loop. The woman had been holding a phone flashlight. She'd said they were looking for the bathhouse. He'd pointed her toward the road. Neither of us said it out loud, but the bathhouse was in the opposite direction from where they'd come from. In the morning, I watched Site 12 while I made coffee. The couple came out around 7:30, and got their own stove going. The teenage boy was gone. I didn't see him come out of the tent. I didn't see him all morning. Around 10 a.m., I walked Caleb and Ann to the bathhouse, and on the way back I noticed something. There was a small pile of stones at the edge of our site, against the tree line. 4 or 5 rocks, arranged in a tight cluster, clearly placed and not naturally occurring. I would have noticed them the previous day. When I got back to the site, the woman from Site 12 was standing at the edge of our campsite near the picnic table, talking to Ray. She was smiling in a way that didn't quite reach her eyes. She said they had extra pancake batter if the kids wanted any. I said, "Thank you, we're fine." She stayed another minute or two, asked where we were from, asked the kids' ages, normal things. Then she went back to her site. Ray said she seemed fine. I said she'd been in our campsite at 3 a.m. He said she'd explained that. I pointed to the stone pile. He looked at it and didn't say anything. I went over to the campground host station and asked who was registered in Site 12. The host, a retired man who was pleasant but visibly uninterested in problems, said the site was registered to a couple from Tennessee. He said they'd been coming to this campground for years. He said it like that should settle something. I asked if there was a teenage boy registered with them. He looked at his clipboard. He looked at it for a while. He said there was no minor on the registration for Site 12. I walked back to our site. The large canvas canopy at Site 12 was down. The man was loading the generator into their truck. The woman was folding the camp kitchen. They were packing up an entire weekend setup by themselves, moving quickly and without talking to each other. The teenage boy wasn't helping. I looked for him for a full minute and couldn't find him anywhere. I packed our stuff while Ray took the kids to the bathhouse one more time before we left. When they got back, the couple from Site 12 was gone. Their truck was gone. The site was empty like they'd never been there. I noticed something on our picnic table when I went to fold it. It was a single index card, the plain white kind, no laminate, handwritten, wedged under the corner of our lantern. It said, "You should not bring children here." I called the Forest Service on the way home. They said they'd look into it. I gave them my name and number. They never called back. When I got home, I searched the campground name online. I spent about an hour going through old hiking forum posts, campground reviews, anything I could find. I didn't find what I was looking for, but I found something. A post from 4 years ago. A woman describing an uncomfortable trip to the same campground over the same Labor Day weekend. She said a couple in the site across from hers had seemed off and that she found a teenage boy standing outside her children's tent in the middle of the night. The couple had apologized and said it was their son sleepwalking. The post had 3 replies. None of them took it seriously. The woman's username was a string of letters and numbers. Her account had no other posts. I reported the old post too. I sent a screenshot to the same Forest Service email I'd used before. They still haven't responded. I think about that family every time we book a camping trip. We haven't gone back to that campground. We probably won't. The kids ask sometimes why we changed our spot, and I tell them we just want to try somewhere new. The stone pile is what I can't explain. You don't stack rocks overnight by accident. That's not something you accidentally do near someone else's campsite in the dark. I still don't know what they were watching for, or what they expected us to do when we found them. And I don't know who that boy was, or where he was when they left. If something feels wrong on a camping trip, and I mean genuinely wrong, not just unfamiliar, trust that. Tell someone where you're going before you go. Pay attention to other people's behavior in the first hours. Note anything that's been moved or placed. And the second your gut says it's time to pack, pack. The wilderness doesn't come with witnesses.